Very recently, I got some feedback, and it went pretty much like this. Carla, you are executing, you're not strategizing, and you are too in the weeds of things, and that's not what we need from you right now. Whew. This feedback really made me think, and it was something that I needed to hear. I was confusing execution and strategy and what was needed from me. I was too in the weeds of things. I was doing and executing and implementing at a level that I needed not to be. I needed to look at things from above. I needed to help my team get to our objectives and our goals, and needed to give them the plan and give them the goals that we were going after, but not implementing and executing with them. So today I decided to make a video on the difference between execution and strategy and how you can get them confused at different levels of your career. The execution and delivery are two things that go hand in hand, and they happen really at every single level of a process. And you kind of got to figure out what step you're in and what role are you playing in the ecosystem of whatever you're doing. So let's get into it. First off, what is strategy? Strategy is essentially your roadmap. Strategy is your plan. The two biggest things that you're going to answer when you're developing a strategy is, what is my objective? What is my goal? What are we actually trying to achieve here? And the second one, it being, how do we actually achieve that objective? That means putting together the resources. What kind of resources are we going to need? How many resources are we going to need? What is the actual schedule? What are the decisions that are needed to be made to achieve our goal? Which means assigning responsibility to those who are actually going to execute. So execution, and I'm going to quote one of my mentors, is actually making the sausage. So if strategy is your roadmap, the execution is actually following the map, figuring out when you need to leave in order to get to your destination based on the plan that you had in place. When do you need to get gas? When do you need to get the snacks? I've essentially made a road trip my analogy here for execution and strategy. Essentially, the execution of things are putting the plan into actions, figuring out the practical, the nitty-gritty steps that you actually have to do to execute the strategy that you have in place. When you're executing, you're actually managing the teams and coordinating the activities that need to be done in order to achieve our objective. The strategy doesn't get down to the actual coordination between the people in the trenches doing the work. The strategy is who needs to be in the trenches, and when do they need to be in the trenches, and what type of experience do you need in the trenches executing your goal. So when we talk about strategy, we're really talking about the direction that we need to go and allocating the resources that you need and establishing the schedule that needs to happen and making those decisions. And the most important part about strategy is ensuring that your team, once you've allocated the resources and you know who needs to be on your team and you have that team in place, the most important part of the strategy is ensuring that your team knows the strategy and the objectives. So this is when the whole empowering your team comes into play. As long as your team understands, look, this is what we're trying to achieve, and this is how we're going to achieve it. And here is the overall layout of the plan in place to achieve this. And these are the big decisions that we need to make in order to help you guys implement the plan. Then your team can actually say, all right, we've got this, as long as you've assigned responsibility as to who is in charge of what. So then your team can then go and take what they're in charge of and work with the resources that they need to work with, manage their own team, and actually do the nitty gritty, get in the weeds and say, all right, this is our goal. So you're going to do this in parallel. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this. We're going to check in 2 weeks and make sure that we're aligned. And then we're going to check in with the other team to ensure that we got the information that we need in order to execute whatever we're executing. That's the actual execution, the real nitty gritty down to it. And that's what I was doing. I was in the trenches. I was actually coordinating the tasks, that activities, and I was not just assigning responsibility to my leads, but getting in with my leads and executing the plan, which was not what was needed out of me. And I'm sure my leads were very confused and wanting me to get the heck out of there. Stop micromanaging, I'm sure. Hey, I'm still growing, I'm still learning. So that is essentially what the difference between strategy and execution is. And there is a possibility that you might have the perfect strategy in place, the perfect plan in place in order to achieve your goal, but it's not executed well for whatever reason. The team was not able to handle it and organize themselves well enough to execute the plan. There is also the possibility that the strategy and the plan in place is not good. It's a terrible strategy, and it will not, no matter how perfect your execution is, no matter how great your team actually implements the strategy that is in place, it will not achieve the goal because it was the plan in place, the strategy in place that was not right for achieving whatever goal you're trying to achieve. Learning how to move from the execution into the strategy is difficult, and it can get a little bit messy because you might think, oh, I am putting together the steps, the list of steps and the actual plan in place of the actual little schedule that we need to do in order to meet the overall master schedule. And so you might think, I'm doing great at strategizing and planning how we're going to get this done. But you're not seeing the bigger picture, and you're not looking at the overall picture, and missing that actually there is no strategy in place. We're all kind of just working in the nitty gritty of things without looking at the overall objective and how we're going to get there. And there's no strategy in place. And we need to figure out who is going to actually create that strategy. In my case, it was supposed to be me. And I missed the boat there. So after hearing that feedback, I had to quickly redirect myself and put myself in a place of strategizing and empowering my team to implement the actual plan. So, we're all still learning. We're all still figuring it out. And I was very, very glad to have heard it out loud, because I probably wouldn't have been able to pull myself out of the weeds of things if someone hadn't told me that that's what they needed out of me. Okay. Well, that's it. That's all I had to say for this real quick video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.